Hi, welcome to Raaonline. Today we are going to see a new topic, Thoraco-Abdominal Diaphragm. The objectives of the CBME which will be dealt with today are AN 47.13 and AN 47.14, which include the attachments, openings, nerve supply, action, abnormal openings, and what is a diaphragmatic hernia. So, the first ones include the attachments of the diaphragm, openings in the diaphragm, nerve supply of diaphragm and actions of diaphragm. Now, what are the abnormal openings in the diaphragm and also about the diaphragmatic hernia. Let's start with a clinical case scenario. A male infant was brought to the hospital with marked difficulty in breathing. The heart sounds were displaced to the right side. The left side of the chest had diminished breath sounds. The abdomen was characteristically scaphoid or boat-shaped. A diagnosis of congenital posterolateral hernia of diaphragm, also known as the Bogdalek hernia, was made. So, here we have an infant who is presenting with difficulty in breathing because there is a defect in the diaphragm. As we have already heard the term thoraco-abdominal diaphragm. Diaphragm means a partition. Now, the thoraco-abdominal diaphragm separates or acts as a partition between the thorax above and the abdomen below, and this one is the partition, the structure. Now, there is a defect in the diaphragm. So, what happens? Abdominal contents may herniate into the thorax. Now, as all the contents of the abdomen herniate into the thorax, there will be displacement of the thoracic contents to the right side. That is why in this case, there are heart sounds displaced to the right side and the abdomen is scaphoid or boat-shaped because of relative emptiness. The abdominal contents have herniated into the thorax. And as the presenting age group, it's an infant. It is a congenital condition, which is a defect in the development or an abnormality in the development of the diaphragm. So, with this clinical case scenario in mind, we will proceed to the topic thoraco-abdominal diaphragm. It is a principal muscle of respiration. It is a large dome-shaped flat muscle. This is a schematic anterior view where you can see a flat partition between the thoracic cavity above and the abdominal cavity below. But is it only flat? No. Some of the fibers, they present as dome shaped. The fibers are so oriented that the diaphragm it has two elevations which are called the domes of the diaphragm. This is the inferior view, means we are standing inside the abdominal cavity and looking up so that the inferior surface of the diaphragm is seen. This one is a superior view where you can see the right and the left domes of diaphragm. And as we already described, this is the anterior view of the diaphragm. So, it is a large, flat, dome-shaped muscle. And it has mainly two parts. One is the peripheral part, which is present at the margins, and the other one is the central part, which is shown in white color. Here is the central part of the diaphragm, which is otherwise known as the central tendon. That is why it is white in color in gross appearance. As it contains collagen fibers, the tendon, it appears white in color, whereas the periphery of the diaphragm is fleshy and it is shown here in brown color. Now, what is the origin? Just like any other muscle, we have to describe any other skeletal muscle. Diaphragm is a skeletal muscle. So, just like any other skeletal muscle, we have to discuss diaphragm under the following headings: the origin, insertion, nerve supply, actions of diaphragm. So, first let us see the origin. The diaphragm has a circumferential origin, means as we have already seen, it is a flat muscle. flat muscle. And where do the fibers take origin? The fibers take origin from the periphery. From the periphery, and the fibers move inside to get attached to the central part. Okay, the fibers take origin from the periphery and the fibers move towards inside to get attached to the tendon in the central part of diaphragm. So, what do we call the outer margin of a circle? It is the circumference. So, the fibers have a circumferential origin. From where? Let's see. So, this is the circle we were talking about. This is a view of the diaphragm from inferior. From within the abdominal cavity, we are viewing the diaphragm just like this. So, here what do we see anteriorly? This is the sternum, the sternum, the lowest part of the sternum or the sternum. Then we have the lower ribs, the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and this one is the 12th rib on either side. So, we have the periphery of the circle is formed by sternum, then the ribs. And what is there posteriorly? There is the vertebra, the vertebral column. Some of the vertebrae also give origin or has the attachment of diaphragm. So, what are these slips called? The part of diaphragm which takes origin from the sternum, sternum, is called sternal slip of diaphragm. Those slips which take origin from the 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and the 12th ribs means the lower 6 ribs. The lower 6 ribs are called the costal slips of diaphragm, and that origin of diaphragm from the vertebrae is the vertebral slip of diaphragm. Now, what happens? All these, as we have already seen, the fibers move in a centripetal direction. Just like this, the fibers move in a centripetal direction, and the insertion, it is not bony. There is a tendon here which is made up obviously of type 1 collagen, and this tendon receives all these fibers. So, we have seen the origin of diaphragm and a little about the insertion of diaphragm